The wedding planner called me the night before our ceremony. She thought I already knew about the change. I asked, "What change?" She went completely silent. Then she apologized and hung up. The next morning, I finally understood why she had called me. Thank you so much for joining Voxa Stories. I appreciate note, this narrative features fictionalized details for creative and educational purposes. Similarities to actual names or events are coincidental, but the message carries clear value. I'm 37 years old, and I've worked as a paramedic for the past 13 years. The kind of job that teaches you fast how little control you actually have over most situations in life, and how much it matters what you do in the 90 seconds after everything goes wrong. I met my fiancée, Sophia, 4 years ago, when I responded to a call at the pharmacy where she worked as a manager. Nothing dramatic, just a customer who'd fainted from low blood sugar. But she stayed calm, gave me clean information, and asked good questions while I worked. I asked her out 2 weeks later. We got engaged 18 months ago, and I'd spent most of that time trying to stay out of the way of her mother, Denise, a woman who'd made it clear from our very first dinner together that she'd had a very different life mapped out for her daughter, one that didn't include a paramedic's salary. Sophia has an older brother, Grant, who works in commercial real estate and married into a family with actual old money 3 years before I came into the picture. Denise talked about Grant's wedding so often in the early days of our relationship that I could probably describe the flower arrangements from memory without ever having seen a single photo. Sophia had grown up watching her brother get the trips, the tuition help, the unconditional praise, while she'd worked 2 jobs through college and never once heard her mother say she was proud of her the same way. I didn't fully understand how deep that resentment ran until we started planning our own wedding, and Denise, who'd offered to help cover a significant portion of the venue and catering costs, started treating that financial contribution like a controlling stake in a company rather than a gift to her daughter. The tension had been building for months before that final phone call. Small things at first, Denise questioning our guest list choices, suggesting we cut certain people from my side of the family to make room for more important business contacts of hers, insisting on a specific caterer she had a personal relationship with instead of the one Sophia and I had already booked and loved after a tasting. Sophia pushed back more than I expected her to, honestly, standing her ground in ways that told me she'd been quietly rehearsing this fight her entire adult life without realizing it. But Denise had one card she kept playing whenever things didn't go her way, reminding us, gently but pointedly, exactly how much money she'd already put down as deposits, and how easily those deposits could simply not be there anymore if she chose to walk away from the arrangement. The night before the wedding, I was at my apartment doing exactly what I imagine most grooms do the night before, trying to fall asleep and mostly failing, when my phone rang around 9:40 p.m. It was Marisol, our wedding planner, a woman I'd worked closely with over the past several months coordinating logistics since Sophia had been buried under a chaotic stretch at the pharmacy leading up to the wedding. Marisol's voice sounded strange from the first word, tight, careful, the tone of someone picking through a conversation like it was full of landmines. She said she was calling to confirm final headcount adjustments for the morning, and something in how she phrased it made me pause before answering. I asked what adjustments she meant, since Sophia and I hadn't requested any changes in over 2 weeks. There was a long pause on the line, long enough that I actually pulled the phone away from my ear to check the call hadn't dropped. When she came back, her voice had changed completely, and she said almost to herself, "Oh no, you don't know." I asked her, flat out, what change she was talking about. She went completely silent for what felt like 10 full seconds. And then she said, "I think this conversation needs to happen with your fiancée and her mother, not me. I'm so sorry. I really thought this had already been discussed with you," and before I could ask a single follow-up question, she apologized again and hung up. I called Sophia immediately. She was staying at her childhood home that night with her mother and bridesmaids, some tradition thing Denise had insisted on, and she picked up sounding groggy, half asleep, completely unaware that anything unusual had happened at all. I told her about the call, watched through the phone as her voice sharpened awake in real time, and heard her say she'd call Marisol herself and figure out what was going on. She called me back 20 minutes later, and I could hear something in her voice that told me whatever she'd learned wasn't small. Denise had gone behind both our backs 3 days earlier and contacted Marisol directly, using her position as the primary financial contributor to unilaterally downgrade nearly everything Sophia and I had spent 8 months planning. She'd cut the guest list from 150 down to roughly 90, quietly removing almost my entire side, including my 2 closest cousins who'd flown in from out of state that very day, along with several co-workers from my station who'd become close friends over the years. She'd switched our carefully chosen caterer to the cheaper option she'd wanted from the beginning, informed the venue coordinator the reception would end 2 hours earlier than planned to reduce overtime staffing costs, and, most devastatingly, had quietly moved our ceremony time forward by 90 minutes without telling either of us, meaning several guests who'd been sent the original invitation would arrive to find the ceremony already finished. She'd told Marisol, apparently with complete confidence, that these were changes Sophia and I had mutually agreed on together as a cost-saving measure, specifically instructing her not to bring it up directly with us unless someone asked, because she wanted it handled quietly and smoothly the day of. Marisol, believing Denise, who'd been the primary point of contact for deposits and payments throughout the entire process, had simply proceeded to implement everything exactly as instructed, right up until that final confirmation call revealed nobody on our end actually knew anything about it. Sophia was shaking with anger by the time she finished explaining it to me over the phone. She told me she confronted her mother right there in the kitchen at nearly 10 at night, and Denise, rather than apologizing, had calmly explained that she felt the original guest list was excessive for a couple in your financial situation. A phrase Sophia repeated to me with a kind of disbelief in her voice I'd never heard from her before. Denise went on to say that since she was covering the majority of costs, she had every right to make decisions that kept the day sensible, and that Sophia was being ungrateful for questioning changes made with her best interests in mind. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat at my kitchen table running through every version of the next morning I could imagine, and somewhere around 2 a.m. Sophia called me back, her voice completely different now, steady in a way that told me she'd made a decision. She said she wasn't going to let her mother control this the way she'd controlled everything else in her life, and she asked me if I trusted her to handle it exactly her way at the venue in the morning, without either of us involving Denise in a screaming match that would only give her the dramatic spectacle she seemed to thrive on. Before I tell you what Sophia actually did the next morning, I want to ask you something, because I've thought about this more than almost anything else since it happened. If someone in your own family used money as leverage to secretly reshape one of the most important days of your life without your consent, would you have confronted them the night before, the way we almost did, or waited and handled it calmly in the moment the way Sophia decided to? I'm genuinely curious which approach you think actually protects a day like that better, because even now, I go back and forth on whether we made the right call staying quiet until morning. The next morning, Sophia arrived at the venue 2 hours before the ceremony, before Denise, before Marisol, before almost anyone else. She'd spent the early hours calling Marisol personally, using the small emergency savings account she'd kept private from her mother for exactly this kind of situation, an account she'd built over 3 years specifically because some instinct in her had never fully trusted how much control Denise held over our finances. She restored the original guest count with Marisol, called 2 of my cousins directly to confirm the original ceremony time hadn't changed on our end, and personally called the original caterer, who, thankfully, hadn't yet been formally cancelled and agreed to honor the original arrangement once Sophia guaranteed payment herself. When Denise arrived that morning expecting to find her downgraded, quietly humiliating version of the wedding already in motion, she instead found the venue exactly as originally planned, the correct guest count, the correct caterer, the ceremony at the correct time. Sophia met her in the parking lot before she could even reach the entrance and told her calmly, in front of nobody but the 2 of them, that if she said one single word to any guest, vendor, or member of the wedding party about the changes she'd tried to make, she would be asked to leave and would not be walking her down the aisle as planned. Denise, according to Sophia, went pale, clearly having expected either total compliance or a screaming confrontation, not calm, absolute boundaries delivered without a single raised voice. Denise did walk her down the aisle that day, silent through the entire ceremony, and left the reception early without explanation, something almost none of the guests noticed at all, since the day itself unfolded exactly as it was supposed to from the very beginning. My cousins made it. My co-workers from the station made it. The caterer Sophia and I had actually chosen served exactly the meal we'd tasted and loved months earlier. Nobody outside the two of us and Marisol ever knew how close that entire day had come to being quietly rewritten by someone who'd mistaken financial contribution for ownership over her daughter's life. The relationship between Sophia and Denise hasn't fully recovered since that day, and honestly, I don't think either of us expected it to. Sophia set a boundary that morning that's held steady for the year and a half since, limiting contact to occasional holidays, refusing to let her mother anywhere near major decisions in our lives anymore, financial or otherwise. Denise, for her part, has never once acknowledged what she tried to do, framing the entire event in her own retelling as Sophia being dramatic about reasonable cost-saving suggestions, which tells you most of what you need to know about whether she ever understood what she'd actually done. What stays with me most from that entire experience isn't the anger I felt at 2 a.m. staring at my kitchen table, or even the audacity of someone trying to secretly shrink her own daughter's wedding day down to something smaller and lesser out of resentment dressed up as practicality. It's watching Sophia, at 6 in the morning on the most important day of her life, quietly and methodically undo months of manipulation with nothing but a private savings account and absolute calm, refusing to give her mother the reaction she was clearly hoping to provoke. If this story hit you, drop a comment and tell me honestly, would you have confronted her the night before like we almost did, or handled it calmly the next morning the way Sophia chose to? I read every comment, and I want to know how you'd have played it. And if you want to hear the next one, about a woman who discovered her own sister had been quietly forging her signature on family property documents for over a decade, that story is coming next, and it's an even bigger twist than this one. Subscribe now so you don't miss it.